righty, sports fans, welcome on in. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. I'm Scott Mitchell filling in for Sean today and tomorrow. So glad you could join the show. If you miss part of the show, don't worry about it. You go to ESPN700sports.com, ESPN 700 app, your smart speaker, and, of course, we are on YouTube at ESPN 700 Sports Utah. We are so proud to be a part of the Utah ESPN Radio Network. We're so proud to be a part of your day today. We got a fun day. We have a lot to talk about. It is, of course, 80 days until Utah football is at UCLA, 9 p.m. here locally on Fox. That will be fun. Always great to start your football season at the Rose Bowl. Wouldn't be bad to end it there either. There's always that possibility. We as Utah fans know what it's like to go to the Rose Bowl, not once but twice. We do not know what it's like to win at the Rose Bowl, but, we keep trying. We'll get there one day. Fun show today. We're going to talk about it all. Like, we are going to get under the hood today of sports, and we are going to look at the engine, and we're going to look at all the parts. We might tear out a few things. We might add a few things. We might tighten some bolts. We might change some filters, but we're going to cover sports. And we're going to start with the hot headlines of the day. Is that okay, Martin? Do you mind that we talk about what's going on in the world of sports today?
Absolutely, sir.
Oh, good. I'm so good. I was wondering if you're awake in there. I can't see you. It's so dark. And I liked it. Martin's my buddy. He's my right-hand man. He's my producer, and he's producing the show with me today. James Peterson is out. He's normally producing Sean's show. He just had a baby boy. So congratulations to James. Anyways, tonight, Game 3 of the NBA Finals against OKC in Indiana. The game's in Indiana. It's tied 1-1, and you can hear that game here on ESPN 792.1 FM. It starts at 6 p.m. Our coverage is brought to you by Budweiser and Bud Light. Interesting matchup here in the finals. It really feels like OKC's the better team. And they pretty much kind of dominated the series for most of it, but it's still tied 1-1. And I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't think you can count out the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton is going to have to show up. Pascal Siakam is going to have to play better. So we'll see if that happens. I hope it does. So. A lot of stuff is happening with the finals tonight in the NBA, and that'll be a fun thing to watch. Who do you like in this series, by the way?
I like OKC. I want to see how they do on the road. Indiana is the underdog team in this series, Scott, but you never know. You playing behind the home crowd, you never know if you can steal a game or two from the favorite team. So I'm still favoring OKC, but let's see what happens after these two games in Indiana.
Man, SGA's just been consistently really good.
He has.
They have been stifling defensively. They are really good defensively, and it's refreshing. It's fun to see that here's a team that's kind of got it both. They kind of got it going defensively, and they got it offensively. I think that's the thing of the NBA right now. It's like. We need versatility, right? We need people who, can play multiple positions, play both ends of the court, and we get enough of those guys, which I believe they have more than enough at the OKC. That boy, they look good. They look really good. So hats off to them. But that's what we love about this. And of course, you can't always, these final games. It's one of the things that's just so maddening to me. How one game a team just looks absolutely terrible, and you just go, "Oh man, this thing is over," and then the next game's a different story, for whatever reason. And a lot of it is making adjustments. You hear a lot of people talking about during a regular season in the NBA they don't have the opportunity to do that, and they do now. They have time between the games. They're playing an opponent over again, so there's a familiarity with them. That's different than during the regular season, which I find kind of weird. Like, why can't you make adjustments? Like, you mean to tell me you have so many games that you can't ever practice. You can't ever really make adjustments. You kind of talk about how you're going to defend teams in your little shoot arounds, and that's kind of it. One of the things, I think of football now, how they actually have little video cameras on iPads.
Yeah.
On the side, they get to watch the whole play. It's like they're watching the game as it's going on.
No more days of the photo
No.
scrapbooks.
And all I know is if I had that kind of information, I'd kill people. I just don't understand how it takes another game before you make an adjustment, or we're going to make a halftime adjustment to everything. So it's quite fascinating. All right, here's another thing I think is fascinating in college basketball. This is another hot headline. They actually changed a few rules.
Okay.
And one of the rules they changed was that there's now a coach's challenge, and the coach, if he challenges a play, can actually get another challenge later on in the game.
Okay.
But you can only challenge if you have a timeout.
Ah.
See, I would think you'd have to have a cheat sheet, right? Okay, I got a timeout and I haven't challenged yet. You have to go through your list to know what I can actually do here. Now, if you win the challenge, you actually get another one.
Hey, there you go.
The question I have, which I don't know the answer to, is if you get another one, do you have to have a timeout when you use that one?
That's a good question.
I don't know. And they're like these head coaches, they have little, you're going to have sticky notes. You're going to have sticky notes all over you, and you're just going to kind of, maybe you have them on the inside of your jacket, right? Your sport coat, and you just look into the sticky note that says, okay, I can make a challenge here. I can call this.
Those little playbooks are going to become the size of NFL playbooks.
Now, here's one that really got me, okay? This one got me, and it got my attention, and I did not know this was the case. They've instituted the ability to get flagrant foul twos, which can come with ejections, and they've changed the rule if a player is contacted in the groin.
Ooh.
That it was always a 1, right? There was no 2. Everybody knows that when you get contacted in the groin, it's a 2. It's not a 1.
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't know
accidental.
anyone who has a 1. They have a 2, and to not have that a flagrant 2 until now, I do not understand this. How could that not be?
That's a good pun. I like that one. That was a good idea.
And until now, and you can get ejected for it. You should be ejected no matter what if you ever hit in the groin, and it should be 2, and you should be gone. So then they also they missed this one. So I'm glad they got that right. I'm glad they've got the groin call right. The coaches can challenge, but they missed a big opportunity.
Okay.
And the big opportunity is actually they still do the halves. And no one who plays basketball plays, we're going to have a halftime. We split up in quarters. We need quarters. I can't handle this half. It's too long. It's too weird. And they're complaining that it's like their television partners don't know when to go to break. We'll go to break during the quarter break. Break up the quarter into little segments. Everybody figures out how to do this except for college basketball. So,
well, what they do now is the 20-minute halves are broken down into 4 sections because you have 4-minute media timeouts in the middle of the whole entire 20 minutes.
I get it.
So you do have 4 breaks. I do get your point on that.
It's dumb.
The argument against it is traditionalists believe in, well, it's 20 minutes, just live with it, and kind of just, roll with the dice. Because they do it in women's. The women's college basketball is 4 quarters.
Thank you.
And they still have a media timeout in the middle of those, too.
They have a sport called the NBA, and they have quarters. Why does college basketball have to be so
stuck in the mud?
Yeah, I was going to say prehistoric in their decision. But they got the flagrant 2 right with the groin call. So we you can't, I guess you can't win them all.
Yep.
And if you're going to win something, I'd rather play a half than to not have the groin call. So that's good. Okay, this was another fascinating headline about Jim Irsay, who recently passed away, and a very, very beloved owner. of the Indianapolis Colts, and you hear some of the great stories, and you hear former players and coaches talk about how much they really loved, Jim Irsay. And now his 3 daughters.
Yes.
It's not one, it's not 2.
Nope.
But its 3 daughters are now going to take full control of the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if this has ever happened before. I have no idea. I do think it's going to come with its challenges.
Yes.
And this has nothing to do with male or female or capability. I'm not worried about. I'm sure they're all capable. Look, if they're interested and they want to do this and they want to be a part of it, they are interested, right? I have no question about that.
So I didn't get the video quote, but one of the daughters came out, that's head of this, came out and was responding to something like that, and she said that it's completely totally BS. That all 3 daughters are going to work together. They're all going to take a specific direction and role in the team. Not all 3 of them are going to be involved in day-to-day operations. Some of them will be involved in marketing. Some of them will be involved in PR, and one of them will be a head of the table for owners meetings. So they have a direction they're going to go in. Let's see what happens.
I get it. I hear you. It's day one. I hear you. An interesting thing happened when I was a member of the Detroit Lions. And William Clay Ford Sr., of course, of the Ford family, owned the Lions. And he was the guy running the team. And he had children. And he had a lot of children, and they were all very, very interested. In fact, his son, William Clay Ford Jr., took over some of the duties and responsibilities of the team with the ultimate goal of actually running the team later on. And as he got through life, of course, people may or may not know this, he ended up becoming the CEO of the Ford Motor Company. And that was a big deal because the Ford Motor Company hadn't had an actual Ford with the last name running the company since Henry the Ford II was running the team, I think, or the Ford Motor Company back in the it might have been early 80s maybe when he died and passed away. But what happened, it was an absolute fiasco.
Yeah.
When William Clay Ford and the son wanted to change things a lot. He wanted to put his own stamp on things. He didn't think it was going in the right direction. And his mom said, "You're not getting control of this team until your dad dies.
Ooh.
So just sit back." Now, something happened along the way, and when William Clay Ford Sr. died, guess who took over?
Junior.
No. Mom.
Oh.
Martha Ford. And she was like 90 when she took over. And so there have been situations where the kids have run the show or wanted to run the show, and it hasn't worked out well. And my concern is not, I don't have any question about their capabilities, but it's so hard in a family business. Like family and business is just not a great mix. It really is. I don't see it as a great mix. And you can look at, the Mara family in New York, and they've done a good job, but there was a leader, or the Rooney family, but there was a leader of that family. The Hunt family in Kansas City, there was a leader. Now, what's interesting, the Green Bay Packers, they're run by everybody. Everybody has a stake in it, but they have a structure in place that says someone is ultimately in charge. And I have to believe that these daughters probably all have their own vision of how this team should be run.
Yes.
And they all look at it and go, yeah,
let's go right. One wants to go left and one wants to go straight.
Right. And they all have the same intention. And believe me, I love what they're saying. I love the fact that they said we were going to show up 30 minutes late today. Because my dad, that's how he ran things. He just kind of ran to the beat of a different drummer. And I love that. I love that they're embracing the uniqueness of Jim Irsay. I love the comments about them saying, hey, we want to be the best. And we believe at being the best at what we do as an organization results in wins. And it does. I mean, the Detroit Lions, when I was there, man, they took great care of players. I mean, when you say then they were the best at, so what exactly is the best? You have the best facilities, you have the best this, that, whatever. But I do like the thought. You hope that it translates into wins. Now, there is another situation I was in where a family owned the team, and it was the Brown family. And they owned the Cincinnati Bengals, and they ran the team. And Paul Brown ran the team, and then Mike Brown took over. And right about the time I was with the Bengals, they ceded control. Ooh. And they ceded control to a daughter.
Yep.
Katie Blackburn.
Yes.
And her husband.
Yep.
And guess what?
They're in line.
Things got a lot better. They got massively better with the Cincinnati Bengals. You got more than one pair of socks in a year. And just that alone propelled this team into the playoffs, and they eventually even got to a Super Bowl. She's
apparently the reason why they have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow still on the roster, too. She made all that money work.
She's pretty sharp, pretty savvy. They really took a very different approach, a different attitude, and a much needed one. So is this going to work? Yeah. I mean, I think so. It can't be worse than it is right now. The Colts haven't made it to a division championship since it's been 11 years.
Yes.
So there's certainly a lot of room to go up, not much to go down.
No.
That could certainly be a fun thing. And you know what? Maybe they get along great. You know how sibling rivalries are.
Yep.
And I mean, a lot of times, especially siblings that are female, like they can get vicious.
Oh yeah.
Especially over the clothes, right? That like one of the worst things you can do, because I had 3 older sisters. Okay, I know this. Like I can speak from experience, and I was the only boy. And like if you take my stuff, if you wear my clothes, you're dead to me. Like that's the thing. The fashion side of this is what I'm more concerned about than actually them all getting together. So could be a lot of fun to watch this ownership group with the Indianapolis Colts moving forward. So I love that whole story and everything that's happening. Okay. Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh actually had surgery. We have a comment from him about that. So it's an interesting combination of things that are wrong with you. You have a hip replacement and a heart ablation, which it's kind of just all of a sudden your heart just kind of beats irregularly.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a thing. And I don't know the seriousness of it. Clearly it's a serious thing. Anytime your heart doesn't beat regularly. And the question is how hard is coaching really on a player or a coach? You know, how hard is coaching on the coaches? Is it physically like detrimental, like to your emotional, to your psychological, to your literal health? And I would say unequivocally yes. And here's Jim Harbaugh, who, I mean, this is Captain Comeback. This guy is in shape. This guy wears khakis on the sideline with the cleats.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a coach that really is up to the challenge of being in good health, you would say it was Jim Harbaugh. You might think you would have this conversation with Andy Reid.
Yeah.
But when you talk to Andy Reid has a pretty good sense of like humor.
Yeah.
You know? And so maybe it's the coaches that are just wound a little too tight. Urban Meyer, who I think everyone would say is wound a little bit too tight.
Yeah.
Has clearly had some health issues.
Andy,
In the short time that I coached, and it was just high school football, man, I felt it. I felt the weight of the pressure to win, and I'm absolutely sure it has an impact on you. But I'll tell you the worst thing that happens, and then I want you to comment on your Andy Reid thing.
Okay.
The worst thing to happen is, holy cow! I gotta digress for just 1 second. There's a fun fact that came out of the Detroit News. It's actually on TV. It says Dan Campbell's only 28 wins away from being the Lions' all-time winningest coach.
Ooh.
28 wins. That's 2 good seasons.
Yes, it is.
Maybe 3.
Yep.
3 average seasons, 2 good seasons. Boom.
There's another
with
coach
very little effort.
Yeah.
By the way. Wow, that's kind of sad. I'm gonna. That's kind of sad. But anyways, back to here's the worst thing about coaching.
What's that?
Standing around during practice and actually watching practice. Like, I would say from my time as a player, I probably have injuries from just standing in a certain way. Yeah. You know, and a lot of times the coach actually stands like with a hip one direction or slightly off or something. And a lot of times you see them bend over with their hands over their knees because their back's killing them because they've been standing there for hours. That's the worst. That's the worst part of coaching is standing around.
Now you know why Wade Fawn sat in the chair all day.
Well, there might have been, a strategy there.
Yeah.
I mean, I always took it as he was kind of aloof and maybe didn't care that much. But, man, maybe he was the only smart person there. It's like, well, why do I want to stand out there? I'll just sit down here. A good idea. Or you could be like what's his name? The longtime Alabama coach, not Nick Saban.
Bear Bryant?
Bear Bryant. You need to just sit up in the tower. That's where I think I'd want to watch practice. I'd want to watch practice from the tower with a blowhorn. Hey, you down there. Knock it off. Had it with you. Run 10 laps.
Bird's eye view.
Yeah. I'll tell you, there's nothing better than a good film view of practice. Nothing better than that. So I'm really glad to hear that Jim Harbaugh is back to health. But you had a comment about Andy Reid.
I was just going to say, Andy Reid's not the one like stand on the sidelines, yell and scream and get cherry red. I've seen Harbaugh do that. I've seen Urban Meyer do that. I've seen Nick Saban do that. Like, those guys get their screaming, lungs ready before they go yell at the officials. Like, Andy Reid's just chill on the sidelines. He'll tell an official he's wrong, but he doesn't yell.
No, and again, I think there's certain personnel. Like, I look at a guy like Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll doesn't seem to be like a guy and Pete Carroll's 73 years old.
Yeah.
He seems to be a guy that can kind of, roll with the punch. Because I will tell you, just so you want to know, Martin, there is nothing more intense than a sideline in an NFL game. The competitiveness, the energy, the intensity of all of it, whoa, it is through the roof. It is through the roof. That was the most shocking thing to me, I think, when I got to the NFL. And I've heard other players say the same thing, that the intensity, the competitiveness of it was insane. So being on that sideline and being in the middle of that and being the facilitator of it. I mean, you're the coach. You need to
set the tone.
Absolutely, of how these this is the expectation. We're out here to win. Win, baby, just win. And if you don't, you're gone. So clearly, it would be fascinating to actually see the life expectancy of an NFL coach compared to other people in society. I mean, Vince Lombardi, of course, he smoked like a chimney, but I think he was in his 50s when he died.
Yes, he was. I mean, Mark Levy, the most famous coach, that's probably the oldest ones. He coached until about 76. Yeah.
And Marv was kind of there's some good NFL sound bites of Marv Levy. His favorite one is "You over a fish's jerk." But yeah, so but now here's the thing, Shula. Whew,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, Shula was like, I just wouldn't want to be an official in a game with the Miami Dolphins. I've never seen a coach that could yell and have it so piercing to your soul, and just every word just melted into your being than Coach Shula.
Nobody was safe.
Oh gosh, and he had this sternness to him, and he just had that jaw, and he just, whoa, wow, yeah. And I sit here and say, and I played, and I actually liked playing for him. I really did, and I like being yelled at from Coach Shula. Like, it's almost a rite of passage. It's one of those things that are just amazing in life. Well, let's take a break. Is it time to go? Yeah, we'll take a break. There is one thing that I did want to get to. We'll talk about what I don't care. So the Dodgers, and this is a thing in Major League Baseball. I don't know if you ever go down these rabbit holes of watching like YouTube videos or little shorts,
Yeah.
And this is sports stuff. And they have these little clips of like these infielders or position players who actually are trying to close out games or close out innings because the pitching staff is overused, and they have another game the next day, so they're like, we're not going to blow out we've already conceded the game.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna put these guys in. Well, the Dodgers did that.
Yes, they did.
And it was a rather early exit of their pitchers.
Yep.
And they just had a guy go, you're just gonna get beat up, like you're gonna get shellacked. And the pitcher goes, I'm out here, trying my guts out, trying to get through this, and it makes me wonder, like, is that really? Because I find it entertaining. And you see them kind of lob the ball in there. They're doing all these things. And then they fire one kind of fast, and they're just trying to throw the hitters off. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But I guess, are we entertained by that as baseball fans? Or are we like, hey, I pay good money to come here, and I don't want to watch you give up in the fourth inning and bring in your shortstop to close out the game throwing moon balls and knuckle curves that go 40 miles an hour.
At some point when the game is completely conceded, you're sitting in the sixth with a bag of peanuts and a beer in your hand. You got to watch something that's entertaining. I mean, might as well see if these infielders can do better. Obviously, the pitchers that they paid for couldn't do it. So, I mean, sometimes it can be.
I think I'd be entertained by it.
I would be too.
If you gave me food, I'd be entertained by about anything.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. We learned a lot of things today, didn't we?
Yes,
already. We're only half an hour into the show. We've learned that the groin foul is a flagrant 2. That's what we learned. All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. Sammy Mora, Ute Zone editor. We're going to talk about the house settlement, the Utes land a big-time recruit, and so much more about the Utes when we return here on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 791 FM. All righty, sports fans, welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. I'm Scott Mitchell, filling in for Sean. I do a show here on ESPN, all of the ESPN networks. I'm on them all. In fact, we do the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here from 10 to 11 on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. I'm in between Dan Patrick and Sean O'Connell, and then you can catch us in the afternoon right after the old Colin Cowherd show on The Fan, 103.9, 98.3, ESPN The Fan. So do a couple hours a day. We get after it. We do the Down and Dirty. We have already gone off the rails on this show in the first segment. It only took us half an hour before we did that. And, of course, we're going to go further off the rails right now. We have joining us Sammy Mora, who's the Ute Zone editor, joins us to talk all things Utes. Sammy, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you?
Oh, I'm living the dream, and it's not a nightmare, so I cannot complain. All right, lot to talk about. Where shall we start? Let's start with Utah landing LaMarcus Bell, who's the number one high school player in Oregon. What does that mean? That's a huge. Of course, he's a running back. What does that mean for our beloved Utes?
Landing Bell was great for the Utah football program. He had kind of established himself as like the clear number one option for the Utes. He was originally an Oregon State commit, actually, and he decommitted from the Beavers in early May, a couple of days after he got his Utah offer, and then, it's been Utah kind of leading the charge ever since. Fought off some good competition. Cal, BYU were both also involved, so was Washington State. But LaMarcus is great. He's one of my favorite prospects I've watched so far in this cycle. At 5'11", 190, you might say everyone kind of thinks, okay, he might be a little bit undersized, but he is just insane. Just good burst. He has a really strong knack of finding the hole and then just hitting it into second gear immediately. He ran a sub 11 second 100 meter, just an all around athletic running back. Last year he put up over 1,500 yards. He had one game that he put up close to 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also good in the passing game. He's had a couple of touchdowns and a couple of good receiving. It's like on his film, you can see the potential at the receiver spot as well. Well, not at receiver, but when needed to be used in the passing game. But he's a great prospect. I'm really excited to see him as a Ute. He shut things down, so it's just he's locked in with the Utes now.
Love it. Speaking of recruiting, this is kind of a unique time of the year. A lot of players visit the schools in June. What other things? What other maybe hot items or players visits or stuff happening in recruiting with a football team that we need to know about?
Well, Utah's actually landed 3 commitments in the last 2 days, which has been some very needed positive momentum for them. Bell was actually the second commitment yesterday. Utah also landed Michael Johnson, a 3-star quarterback from Georgia, yesterday as well. And then the day before, Utah landed cornerback Major Hinchin out of California. So 3 commits in 2 days is great, is much needed momentum for Utah because they've had a couple of losses already on the recruiting trail this season. But next weekend is going to be absolutely massive for the Utes. A double-digit number of visitors on campus. Some of them very high priority guys for this Utah program. And you're seeing it like a trend and change in college recruiting now. You're seeing more and more kids take the summer visits, want to be committed by July because they want to play their high school season, and then graduate in December and enroll in January. So you're seeing this kind of shift in college football recruiting in terms of timelines and stuff like that. But Utah's hosted a lot of really good. There's 3 kids on campus currently for Utah on visits, but they're chugging along. They're building this class. Utah's always very meticulous with what they do and how they build out their classes. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this class finishes shaping up. I know quarterback was that one because quarterback and offensive line were the 2, biggest glaring areas where you're going to need to find some help for 2026 recruiting. And you land Michael Johnson, which was amazing. He's a great, phenomenal quarterback prospect. And then, Utah's in the run for a bunch of high-level offensive tackles. Kelvin Obot out of Idaho, Colin Campbell out of Arizona, Rowdy Pierce out of Texas. There's a lot of high-name offensive tackles that Utah's going after. Also, Moses Sparks from New Mexico. And Utah's looking for guys that can come in and compete for playing time immediately. I mean, Obot is one of the best offensive tackles in the country, and for him to get to be able to, see what Utah did with Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, that has to be nothing but encouraging for him. He still has Michigan and Oregon on the visit docket. And that one's going to be one of those recruiting battles that goes down to the wire. But, Utah's done a good job so far. And, I fully expect, some more commitments to come, maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks that will really start to flesh out this class a lot better.
Sounds exciting. I can't wait to see it myself. So this house settlement just got finalized. And, of course, it has to have an impact on this recruiting. What is the impact it has on recruiting right now, what we're actually talking about?
I mean, I think that you're seeing more and more schools tell these high school prospects being like, hey, we only have X amount of spots now that are designated for high school kids. So you're seeing, usually you wouldn't see as many kids commit, the weekend after a visit. Like, you would see a lot of kids commit like the weekend after visits, but you're seeing kids after their first visit pull the trigger and commit to some of these schools. And so, I think that that's one of the big things that's changing, especially with recruiting, because you're seeing schools go more to you have to, it's high school kids and the portal. Some schools go 60-40, some schools go 50-50. So it just kind of depends on the school's mentality on how they're going to build out their classes, because, the portal has turned into this thing where, if you don't land the kids you need at the high school level, or maybe there isn't guys that you think will fill your needs, you can always, wait for the portal to open in December and, have the same sort of impact on the team, whether it is like a freshman who, someone like Dylan Battle who transferred from LSU this spring. He technically should just be graduating high school right now, but he was an early enrollee at LSU and he put his name in the portal. He came to Utah. So, still a young guy that can develop, but he did fill the need at defensive tackle for the Utes. So I think you're seeing that kind of shift is just, kids are committing earlier now. There's not a lot of, late July. You'll still see some, because kids can take official visits in the summer up until the weekend of June 20th. So that is the last weekend they're permitted to take summer official visits. So like Utah, for example, is having that massive weekend with the recruits and stuff. So you'll see some kids trickle out. You'll see some, commit in July and stuff, but you're seeing less and less of these kids that are committing, in October or in November or on signing day and stuff, because a lot of these kids want to have their homes locked up because, of the ever-changing landscape of college athletics.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up, because I think so many people think, well, this is this transfer portal, the NIL, being paid to play now. And I know it's not paid to play, it's for your name, image, and likeness, but regardless, players are being paid. And everyone thinks, well, it's in the player's favor. But your point is that, hey, there are only so many spots, and it's like musical chairs. You can take a risk of kind of sitting out there too long, and you could end up not having a seat at the table, because you're no longer just competing against other high school kids. You're now competing against kids in college. I mean, the transfer portal to me is almost like what junior colleges used to be. You can find a player that's proven himself, or he's showcased something at a higher level, and now you get a run at him. I'm almost more inclined to go after those kids that have kind of played a little bit and been in college, so I might be a 50-50 guy, but because you got to be really selective about how you spend your money with these high school kids. So it's fascinating to kind of see the game that goes on, and how the universities are kind of leveraging it to some degree to say, look, we only have so many spots. It's really fascinating. So how does this house settlement actually affect in the big picture the athletics at the University of Utah?
I mean, I think it'll help Utah to a certain extent. Utah's not been known as one of the biggest spenders they're very selective, like you said, with money.
We're so cheap in
Utah
Utah. We're just cheap. Jeez.
I mean, Utah wanted to retain the key pieces of talent they had. Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, Smith Snowden. The list goes on of the kids that they wanted to retain. But I think that I do appreciate that to a certain extent. It kind of puts people on somewhat of the same ground, And I say somewhat because there's still the clearinghouse. There's still going to be those other deals that can or cannot go through and stuff, but to know that a good majority of schools have this $20 million is going to be to split amongst other sports is going to be it's going to be interesting to see how it shapes out, and especially now with the news that just broke that there's a group of women's college athletes that are trying to get they're not overturning, but they're fighting against this ruling, saying that it violates Title IX and stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this shapes up because you kind of know the hierarchy of how money is going to be spent on the Hill. It's going to be football, men's basketball, gymnastics, and women's basketball are probably going to get, probably the most. Lacrosse would make a push, skiing would make a push, stuff like that. But you kind of have an idea of who your top 4 spenders are going to be for, the Utah athletic department, which is, it should give some, kind of comfort because it's not going to be like, okay, well, they're pushing X amount of money to probably like a tennis team that, is good, but, there's bigger fish to fry in college athletics right now. But it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to help Utah. But, it's until there's some guardrails put up, I still think it's kind of the Wild West out there.
Okay, you're Mark Harlan. You're running the program. You're the athletic director. How are you chopping up the pie? Like what program? What's a good strategy? What's a winning strategy on how to budget this money that you're getting and putting into your program? What makes sense?
Well, I think obviously football has to get the majority of the money, just because they are, they do bring in the most revenue into this athletic department. I think as much as the running Utes have struggled the last few years, you have to at least. I think they're the second most, in my opinion, just because they have a long history of what they've been able to do. And, you need to give Alex Jensen the resources to possibly get Utah back into that conversation of being a tournament team, competing for conference championships, and making those deep runs. So I think you kick the next amount to him. And then this might be a bold take for me. I think your third highest one is going to be the Red Rocks. Just because, 10 national championships, the most on the campus. Well, not most. Ski has most, but, the most of any women's sport on the team. Any of women's sport. You do that, you give it to the Red Rocks because, they're contending. They're contending for these national titles. They bring in countless 5-star girls. They are, I think you give it to them. It also would help in gymnastics recruiting because, Oklahoma and LSU and UCLA might not be giving as much to their gymnastics team because they have quite a few more programs that are going to be deserving of that money as well, especially Oklahoma and LSU. If we look at how many of their sports are in, title contention every single year. And then I think the fourth one you give money to is the women's basketball team. Gavin is heading into his second year, but there's a long history of, well, not long, but a recent history of success for Utah. They're brought in their highest rated recruiting class this season. So I think that you give some to the women's basketball team, and then the rest you kind of split. I think lacrosse and softball have been successful in recent years, so you kind of think you give them a look. Ski, you give a look. But I think that's where it's at. And, the rest of the sports, the tennises, the cross countries, the women's soccer, they get, the rest. Volleyball should be up there with softball and lacrosse as well. Beth has done a great job with that program since she's been here.
I'm going to ask you a dumb question because I don't know the answer. So please.
There's no dumb questions,
okay.
Scott. So you're fine.
Thank you so much. Whew. I feel better now. Where does the money come from? Is it something the university, do they take it out of the money they get from the conference and from all of the revenue they bring in, or does it come from another place? Where does this $20.5 million actually come from?
My understanding is that it's all revenue that has been either earned or fundraised by the school. That's my understanding of it. If that understanding is wrong, then I will gladly take my words back. But that was my understanding, is that it's revenue slash money that has been earned by the school.
So all the NIL revenue or money that players were receiving was from outside sources like boosters, collectives, and all that. Now the universities are actually using some of their revenue to share with the players moving forward. Is that a fair assessment of how to say it?
Yeah, probably.
But there's also the ability to get an outside deal in your NIL, your name, image, and likeness from a booster, right? And they have a clearinghouse. They have to vet it out to say that it's actually a legitimate thing. That's correct as well, right?
Yes.
How well will that program work? Like at the University of Utah, is there still an appetite for that? Because Cam Rising, I think some people kind of got burned in that situation, because it didn't pan out the way that maybe they thought. So is that something that's viable and can be a part of the program moving forward?
I mean, I think it will for certain athletes. I mean, this is still this officially doesn't kick off until July 1st. So, there's still a lot that's going to be, announced, and you're going to learn stuff as we go through this process. I know Keanu Dawes was announced as the first Utah athlete to sign a rev sharing deal actually last night when they announced the Run and Utes roster. But, it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. I know it's the clearinghouse is gonna be interesting to see how things go, because then there's gonna be lawsuits that pop up from that and stuff, and so this whole thing is just, I think it's just like, for me at least, this is gonna kind of be a wait and see type thing, kind of like how we were kind of in a wait and see how it's gonna play out when NIL first hit the market, in 2021. I think, again, this is one of those things for me. I'm just gonna kind of watch and see how it develops, and talk to people, see what they're hearing and stuff like that. But as of right now, that's where I kind of think it's going to be at.
So we've had a plot twist in the drama of college athletics. We should grab our popcorn, kick back in our lazy boy, and watch all of the drama unfold. So, Sammy, thank you so much for joining us. Great stuff. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too, Scott.
I know you have it, Sammy Moore, Ute Zone, she's the editor. So really good stuff. It's fascinating what's going on in college sports today. And again, it's, as she said, it's just getting started. We're going to have lawsuit. All right, take a break. We come back. Why in the heck can't anyone get an interview with a head coach? We'll answer that and so much more when the Sean O'Connell Show returns here on ESPN 791 FM. Hi, sports fans. Welcome back. I'm Scott Mitchell. This is the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 921 FM, Utah's #1 sports talk. I'm filling in for Sean today and tomorrow. Fun show. We haven't even got through the first hour. We're having a great time. And it's even going to get better right here. So apparently, the New York Knicks are trying to find a new head coach because they fired their coach who won 50 games, I think 2 years in a row, got his team into the playoffs, and then they said, no, you're out. You're gone. You're out of here. And the Knicks have been trying to talk to the Mavericks head coach, Jason Kidd, and, of course, the Houston Rockets coach, Ime Udoka. And the Minnesota Timberwolves head coach, Chris Finch. They're 0 for 3. If you're 0 for 3, that's 3 strikes, you're out.
Basically.
And, first of all, what kind of league is this? Where you're a head coach, you're under contract, and other people can talk to you. I don't get that. I don't understand that. And, of course, they can deny you the right to do that. Why in the world, if you had a head coach, would you ever say, oh, sure, talk to our guy? In fact, if you want to try to woo him away from here, we're more than happy to help you do that. That makes no sense to me. And I'm probably not understanding all of this, but let me give the Knicks a heads up, okay? Most coaches go, I'm not going to go to an organization that's firing a coach who's actually successful. Hello, Captain Obvious. I mean, that should be your, you're sitting here scratching their head going, what we don't understand. We're the New York Knicks. Why wouldn't anyone want to come here? Well, they don't want to come there because coaches like some stability. They like some longevity. They like to be in a position where if they win and they do well, that, hey, guess what? You're going to stick around. I mean, the Utah Jazz, Will Hardy, he's hardly done anything except lose and tank, and they've extended him for years. You don't even have to win in Utah, and you're here for life.
Could you imagine after the championship loss, you guys lost to Buffalo? Buffalo fires Mark Levy, and the first thing they do is call Don Show and say, hey, you want to go to Buffalo, New York?
Yeah, Don Shula in Buffalo, New York, that would be a fun one. Oh, they would love him.
Oh, no, absolutely.
No. They would
absolutely.
They would love Coach Shula. But, no, you're absolutely the right point. And then you have a coach who was fired, who's won a championship in Michael Malone, and then they're not interested.
No.
They're not interested. Now, I can understand. I can't. Actually, I don't understand how coaches get hired and fired in any sport. I mean, think of Billy Martin. Billy Martin and George Steinbrenner, he hired and fired and fired and hired, and they had this weird relationship for all these years, and it was just strange and bizarre. And, of course, Yogi Berra gets fired from George Steinbrenner, and he doesn't want to go talk to the Yankees for decades. And then you have coaches that are horrible, terrible, and they just get another job, and they keep getting more jobs, and they just recycle so many of these guys, and you're just scratching your head going, who makes these decisions, and what in the world are you thinking about? I don't get it. I really don't. I don't understand for the life of me how football coaches, how basketball, how any of them, baseball, it doesn't matter. Is there a sport out there that has some sanity about how they hire and fire their coaches? I mean, here you have Jimmy Johnson, who wins 2 Super Bowls, really that whole team and that organization was so primed to be the dominant team of the decade.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones can't seem to get along for 2 minutes. And so they part ways. It's so stupid. It is absolutely stupid. I will tell you, though, man, if I had a good coach, I would keep him as long as I could. Now, you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's what they do.
Yep.
I mean, they had Chuck Noll, they had Bill Cowher, and they've had Mike Tomlin since 1970.
Yep.
Think of that. That is insane. And yet you could argue that probably one of the most stable and secure organizations in all of sports. That should tell you something. Yep. It really should tell you something. And it's like you could say, we either hire the right guy and we spend the time, we know who that person is, or when we hire someone, we show a tremendous amount of patience as they work through and develop and build our program. Because Chuck Noll, they weren't winning things early on, and it took Bill Cowher a long time to win a Super Bowl. And they weren't, basically Bill Cowher and Chuck Noll retired. Like they weren't fired, they just retired.
Yeah.
And I believe that continuity, gosh, it has to be such an impact on the success of your program.
On top of that, you mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers. That went through Rooney Sr., Jr., and the third, and all three of those owners were still the same stable owners.
Yep. So get some stability to you, organizations. We're firing these coaches all the time. Same thing with the players. Keep them around. Jeez. Everyone's wanting to change every 5 minutes. All right, we're going to change. We're going to change and go to a new topic right around the corner when we come back. Oh, hey, guess what? It's the NFL news of note. We're going to do that. Oh, and I just want to – there is somebody, when I grow up, this is who I want to be. Like, he is now my new sports idol hero forever. You'll find out who it is when the Sean O'Connell Show returns here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Proud to be a part of Utah's ESPN radio network. I'm Scotty Mitchell, filling in for Sean today and tomorrow. We're having fun today. I'm just telling you right now, we are having a ball. This is a good show. It is a lot of fun. I was just thinking. I'm here with Martin, my producer on my show, The Down and Dirty, which you can hear here on ESPN 792.1 at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then we do another version, not the same one, on our sister station, 103.9, 98.3, from 1 to 2 in the afternoon. So love for you to catch us if you miss anything. If you miss anything on any of our shows, you just download the ESPN 700 app. It's free. You can also tell your smart speaker. You can go to ESPN700sports.com. We're also on YouTube at ESPN 700 Sports Utah. So no excuses to get anything we want. But one thing that I've realized in my life that I'm kind of mad at my parents about, and there's not much I'm mad at my parents about. My parents did a good job. They did a good job. They were good people. They weren't perfect people, like they want to tell me, but they were. They tried their best. They really did. They were good. But the one thing I'm disappointed. Well, there's two things, and one relates to my new sports hero, but the other one doesn't. The one thing that I'm mad that I was born in Utah.
Okay.
I love Utah. I'm here. I live here. It's a great state, greatest state in the United States of America. But where I'm disappointed is I have a Utah accent.
Yes, you do.
And I wish I didn't. I wish I had a cool accent.
What, like mine from the Midwest?
Well, yeah. I've been in Michigan, and the Midwestern accent. No, your accent might be worse than mine.
Hey,
I want a southern accent. I want to be from Texas.
Howdy, partner.
See, you can't do it, Martin. That is not a southern accent. Or I want one from like New Jersey. You know, I want, or maybe one from Massachusetts. Like I want to park the car. You know, I just want something good, and I can't even do the Utah accent because it's just my voice. And there's these dumb words that we say in Utah. They're just Utah things, and you can't get them out of you. So I'm mad at my parents for giving me a bad accent. I want a good one. Why couldn't I have been born in Texas? Howdy, partner.
Hang out with the Longhorns?
Yes. I'm not even going to do it. I'm not even going to do a southern accent because I'm still mad at my parents. And here's the other thing I'm mad at my parents about, which brings me to our NFL news of note. I'm so mad at my parents that they borned me when they did. Why didn't they born me later so I could be my new favorite hero, and that's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is my new hero. I mean, listen to what this guy, what he's done, what he is, who he is. He will have made almost, well, it's over $400 million in his career. And that's why I'm mad at my parents, because it's like, to be born now. Like I would have, and I know I shouldn't be ungrateful. I know I should be appreciative. And I am. I'm appreciative of my experiences. But I just wish that maybe they would have happened a little later.
To get paid $10 million to be a backup these days?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Not about the money.
No. It's not $10 million. Okay, so Kirk Cousins, there was a big discussion about Kirk Cousins. Okay? Kirk Cousins was kind of disgruntled. They gave him $180 million to go to the Atlanta Falcons, and most of it was guaranteed.
Wow.
And they, in his first year, before he had his first game, before he had his first anything, they drafted Michael Penix Jr., and he's like, what the heck? And then Michael Penix Jr. takes over for Kirk Cousins with 3 or 4 games left in the season. And now Kirk Cousins is stuck in Atlanta. They're going to pay him $27 million this year to be stuck there. That's the best job in all of sports. It's better than a backup quarterback job. Like, because you're being paid starter money, being paid all this guaranteed money to just hang out. And there's like no, I mean, like that is the best job in the world. That is the best job I've ever heard of in the entire world. That is like, because as a backup, if you're really good as a backup quarterback, you can make close to 10 million. I don't think it's quite 10 million, but it's close. There's some guys that have, under special circumstances, Chase Daniel made $40 million in a career, and he threw 10 touchdowns. I mean, it's insane, the amount of money he made. And $40 million today sounds like nothing. And it is. It's nothing. It's $40 million of nothing to do nothing in the NFL, and that's how you get paid. But, man, I'm telling you, Kirk Cousins, he is my hero. My hero. He's going to sit there. And there's not really any other team for him to go. I mean, the quarterback positions are snatched up, and I'm sure a lot of people go, yeah, we've kind of seen enough of Kirk Cousins. Atlanta Falcons, he's your problem. You take him on. And the Falcons go, well, we can't trade him. If we cut him, we still have to pay him, so we might as well pay him because we're paying the other quarterback peanuts because he's on a rookie deal. So it doesn't really hurt him financially. It kind of makes a lot of sense to just keep him around.
Sounds like Anthony Richardson and Matt Ryan situation.
It's one of those literally like really bad but really good situations for almost everyone. Like the only thing that's better is if he was playing and playing well, or he got traded somewhere. I mean, this is truly the best situation for everyone. So it's fast. That's a crazy thing right there.
You were in a similar situation, not for as long as Kurt, not the money situation, but the veteran and the rookie. You and I'm trying to remember his name in Cincinnati.
Keely Smith.
Yeah, Keely Smith. What do you think Kurt is thinking in those meetings as he's watching film, sitting there with Michael Penix, going, "Man, this kid is taking my job, but I'm making 10 times more than him."
Well, it certainly softens the blow.
It does.
I mean, really, like if you're one of the top now, the other players hate you too.
Oh.
They hate you in a good way. They go, man, you are the luckiest SOB in the whole entire world. For you to get paid all this money and you don't have to go out there and kill yourself. Now, knowing Kirk Cousins, he's not happy. He's sitting there going, I want to be on the field. I mean, this guy's fiercely competitive. He's been I don't know that there's a player ever in the history of the NFL that's got more out of his talent than Kirk Cousins. I think he's hit his ceiling a long time ago, and he's tapped it out. I mean, he's just done a brilliant job. I mean, it's truly remarkable what he's done. And even in the face of just a horrible situation that he's in, he is still making out tremendously well. So he's kind of just, it's all house money. He's just playing on house money. There's no pressure. There's no nothing. He can just go and do and be and whatever he wants every day. Have a great attitude about everything. Cheer him on. Help him out. It's a phenomenal place, and it's one of those like that just doesn't happen very often places. Like it's so much of an anomaly to have this happen, because most teams just go, man, we're just gonna get rid of you. And it doesn't really make sense to get rid of him. And probably part of why they keep him around is because he is a good dude. Because they know that he'll be a good soldier. They know that he'll be a good teammate and a good citizen. And so, he's not going to be disgruntled. He's not going to be some locker room lawyer trying to politic to everyone why he should be the guy over Michael Penix. And if he's really smart, he'll just bide his time and who knows? He may end up playing this year, because they don't know how Michael Penix is going to turn out. And he may go somewhere else. He may not. It doesn't matter. But he's going to get paid. Okay, Aaron Rodgers, of course, he's in his mini camp with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is what Aaron Rodgers had to say. Okay. I love this. I absolutely love it. He makes up some just amazing points. It's great. Why would you never want to play? I mean, I would play for the Steelers if I was him. And you know, it's so different for me, the feeling of this from when he went to the Jets. The whole Jets thing just didn't feel right. Just didn't feel, you know, and it's the Jets. Come on. The Steelers are a very, very good place. Probably for Aaron Rodgers' whole zen, you know, and just feeling the calmness of everything. I imagine that with what the Steelers did and didn't do, they knew that this was going to happen a long time ago. They probably had a time frame and a schedule because you hear, I mean, Aaron Rodgers got married, which is so weird, which is awesome for him that, you know, and I'm sure he said, look, I don't want to make my marriage a spectacle. I want to keep it personal and private. And so, which I think you have to respect. Of course you do. And so I'm sure a lot of it had to do with that he did get married and that he was getting married. He says, look, I'm getting married. It's important to me. I want to do it the right way. I don't want to have things as a distraction. I don't want to bring up all of this. So I'm sure that's why this hasn't happened. Because if the Steelers didn't think they were going to get Aaron Rodgers, they would have really gone out and gotten someone else because they're a team that needs a really good quarterback. And if they do, they feel like they can compete to be one of the top teams in the AFC. And they may be right now. Like if Aaron Rodgers can be healthy and play well, and I think he kind of had the injury thing happen. I don't think it's going to all be on him with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's a real exciting time to watch this and to see this. I'm not gonna lie, I was quite shocked and pleasantly shocked to hear kind of because he makes some great points about who the Steelers are and their organization and just kind of how he fits into all of it. It's beautiful. So I kind of changed my tune a little bit on the Pittsburgh Steelers just after listening to what Aaron Rodgers had to say about it. Okay. Do we have a Shadur Sanders clip?
Yes, we do.
So Shadur Sanders, he's getting fewer reps, and he's getting no first-team reps. Here's what he had to say about all that. Okay, couple things right there. Before I get into the reps, first of all, you don't have time. Okay? Like you have right now. And if you don't make an impression right now, you're not on scholarship. And I don't care if your last name is Sanders. I don't care who your dad is. I don't care about any of it. If you don't show right now with the little time you have that you are a reason they should keep you around, then you're not going to make it. And to just kind of have the mindset of, hey, you know, it's all cool right now. I'm just here. Like, no, it's not. There has got to be a sense of your urgency, an urgent sense of urgency. You're fifth round draft choice. There were no. It's not just happy go lucky. I'm happy to be here. Situation. And he did say something he has to clean up. I mean, I've got to get faster on my drops. Yes, you do, sir. Your drops killed you in college. It made your life a whole lot worse, and it will eat your lunch in the NFL. If you are slow, if you are lethargic, if you are kind of measured, like you got to get your behind parts back there as quickly as you possibly can. And so this whole life is good, and man, I'm happy to be here, and I'm looking at the long range of this. There is no long range in the NFL. The longest range you have is right now, and it's it. That's all there is. Now Shador's reps have been cut, and if you want to have any idea of how you fit on a team, how many reps are you getting? Because there's only so many reps they can give in practice. And they give those reps to the people that legitimately are going to give them an opportunity to win. Shedeur Sanders is fighting to be the third-string quarterback. Not the second string, not the first string, the third-string quarterback. And you got to be a fierce fighter if you want to be even that guy. So, I don't know. And what's crazy about this is I'm spending time on this. I mean, it's a good thing to talk about. It's just crazy that there's so much attention to this. Like nobody else is out there, and people are going, "Hey, let's talk about the 5th round, 4th quarterback." We shouldn't even be talking about it. Should not be talking about it. Here's one I thought was interesting. Kyler Murray. Now, I've given my opinion about the Arizona Cardinals. I don't like their colors. I don't like their organization. I think they just need to start over again. Just start everything all over again. It's just a bad vibe. And Kyler Murray has, this guy's a former he was the first pick in the draft.
Yes, he was.
Heisman Trophy winner.
Yes, he was.
But he said something that really caught my attention. And he goes, "I really feel like I'm at my best. I really feel like I'm at my prime." And I know that feeling. Like, it's a good feeling. And what you hope for when you're in that place. So your prime is when you understand the game of football. This is your football prime. When you understand the game of football so well, like it just rolls off. You just know, you just understand, you just see it all. You're just comfortable with all of it. You're not trying to guess. You're not hesitant at all. You're not seeing something going, "What the heck was that? I don't know. I've never seen that before. I don't know how do I handle that? What do I do with that?" You don't know. And so, but you do when you hit that level. You just hit that level of conscious, unconscious, or conscious competence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to piggyback that with your physical, like, perfectness, like the prime of your physicalness. So when these two little things converge, because early on in your life in the NFL, your physical side of things dominates. That's why all these guys run when they're young, because it's the best time that they can do that. A lot of people argue that your arm is strongest. I actually found my arm got stronger as I got older, which was weird. And so you rely on that because you don't really know. You don't really totally understand, and you don't really know the game. And then as you kind of get to a point where your knowledge and your physicalness collide, and that's your prime. And that's an awesome place to be. And it's so unfortunate that players miss that, and organizations don't understand this and don't really take full advantage of this and go, "This dude's in his prime." When he's in his prime, we want to make sure everything else around this player and everyone is, that we can fully take advantage and magnify how beautiful the prime of this player is. Now, when you're Tom Brady, here's the thing. You don't got any physicalness. Like, you are a non-athlete. So you get in your prime in like year 3, and you just ride your prime for the next 20 years. That's what made Tom Brady so great, is there didn't have to be colliding. Like, the physicalness, like Tom Brady actually might have been at his physical best shape when he was 45, because it wasn't much different than when he was 25. There's a thing that they do these interposed, like Tom Brady running a 40-yard dash when he's a rookie,
right?
And when he's 45, and I think 45 beats the younger one.
Yes, he did.
So what you need to find a non-athletic, super brainiac guy that doesn't have this collision course between his athleticism and his brain.
To win 5 MVPs and 7 Super Bowls?
Yeah. Come on, this game's simple. Find a guy like that. You're going to win a lot of Super Bowls. All right, we're going to take a break. Oh, my goodness, I'm having so much fun today. I really am. This is really fun. Okay, we come back. We're going to do a SWOT analysis on Utah's football team this year. I'll explain what SWOT analysis is if you don't know when we come back here on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792.1 FM. Hey, sports fans, welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. I'm Scott Mitchell, filling in for Sean O'Connell today and tomorrow. Of course, I host the Down and Dirty with me, Scott Mitchell, every day here on ESPN 792.1 from 10 to 11. So you can go check that out. I'll get you all warmed up for old Sean. And where is Sean? Do we know where he is?
I do not specifically know, but I think he's going to a fight this weekend.
Well, I know that. But it's like, because sometimes he's in Orlando, sometimes he's over the pond.
Let me look it up. I'll give you
He's
an
all
answer
over
in
the
a
place.
minute.
Okay. So I thought we'd do a fun thing here. And I'm going to do this on my show in further analysis. Paralysis by analysis. That's what we do in our society. We do it so well. We got everyone so twisted up in knots, and they're going forward, back. They don't know if they're coming or going. Anyways, so a SWOT analysis. So a lot of businesses do this, where when they're preparing for a new year or their business and how they can improve and grow and develop their business, they'll do this SWOT analysis. So the SWOT analysis is basically our strengths. So SWOT, SWAT. So strengths, weaknesses, assets, and threats. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun to give my own SWOT analysis on the Utah football program going into the 2023 season. So here we go. Okay, strengths. So what is my vision or my opinion of the strengths of this football team? So I think one of the biggest strengths that this team has is coaching continuity. Kyle Whittingham is the second longest tenured coach in all of college football by a very short margin. And he's just done a tremendous job. He's had a tremendous willingness to stay. And he talks about it a lot. He talks about how, I don't have to find the newest job or go in the next direction. He really felt that it was much better. Now, of course, you still have to win, which he's done. And he's taken this program to just a really special place it never went to. I'm sure when Kyle Whittingham got hired as the head coach, nobody said, oh, well, you'll go to the Rose Bowl and you'll win the Pac-12 conference championship twice and go to 2 Rose Bowls. So the results have been phenomenal. But it's not just Coach Whittingham. It's the other members of his staff. And one of the things you really look to that has been a very common pillar and staple of this program has been the defense, and it's been Morgan Scalley. And Morgan Scalley has grown and developed as a player or as a coach under Kyle Whittingham. He moved into more and more roles as he's moved through his coaching career, to the point that he is the heir apparent of Kyle Whittingham. And that's a huge, and you can see the benefit of it. This defense has been very consistent a year in and year out. They really have it dialed in. They really understand it, but it's the other places as well. Jim Harding has been the offensive line coach for some time. The biggest challenge for this team has really been offensive coordinator, and it's changed a lot. And I could give you my assessment of that, because it may be a weakness. Like Coach Whittingham's great defensive mind, but offensively it's not the same thing. I think he understands, but he spends a lot of time with that defense, and that's who he is, and it's totally fine because it's built a tremendous program. But the coaching continuity, to have the Sharif Shahs who have been there for quite some time now, and just his whole staff, and Luther Ellis and Lewis Powell, and I mean all these guys have just been Freddie Whittingham. I mean they've been in and with the program. And have produced great results. They understand the culture. They understand recruiting. They understand everything. So it's a massive strength to this program to have the coaching continuity that they've had. And of course, if you want to talk about another strength of this team, it's the defense. Like if you go into this season specifically, it's a really solid defense. They have returning production at all levels: defensive line, linebacker, and the secondary. And it's not just experience; it's quality. They have quality players, really, at all of these levels. And so you have a defense that was quite good a year ago. It really was, and you just know that defense is going to continue to be a strength for this team this year. If they could have found any offense last year, their 8 or 9 wins, maybe even more, because they were in a lot of close ball games. They easily could have won, but that defense kind of helped them and held them in that position. So you've got a strong defense, and that is a huge strength to this. The other thing is culture. It's a real strength to this program. There's an identity with this program. They know who they are. They've built a culture that of developing players, of creating a family atmosphere. But it's also a culture. It's a tough culture too. It's it's not. You go through this program and you're going to earn your stripes, and it's for tough-minded people. And that's not bad. There's nothing at all wrong with that in any sense of the word. So culture and all of how they've developed it, Kyle Whittingham says, we're not coming to you. You have to come to us. And players understand this, and they know this. And a lot of why that helps is, as a player, you just want to know how things work and where it stands and how you can fit into what we're actually doing. And when there's not really that culture there's not and it's a culture of winning as well, which is another strength to me. And it's kind of that there's an expectation, and everyone understands it from day one, and they understand the process with which to get there. Businesses, football programs would kill to have a culture, to identify a culture. And last season is one of those things where they go, that's not acceptable to us. And measures are being taken to rectify that problem, because there is an understanding, there is a culture, there is a winning tradition. And then the other thing that's a real strength for this team is the offensive line. Jason Beckett's talked about, implementing a new offense and how easy that's been because of the strength of this offensive line. You're looking at 2 tackles that will probably be drafted in the first round. And that's massive. And every guy on the every starter, and there's really deep quality players in the backup positions as well. So this is in all reality, the offensive line is probably the absolute strongest part of this entire team. When you are good up front, you're going to be a good football team. It's just how it is. It's just you can have, all the great skill players in the world, but if you are not good up front, if you're not good up front on defense, it kills everything. All of it. Nothing works unless you are solid and good up front. And that this Utah team is that. Now a weakness. So we talked about some strengths. I didn't necessarily talk about all of them, but I think some of the key top strengths of Utah's football team. But the weaknesses are depth. And depth has been when they've won conference championships, has been one of the biggest keys is depth. Depth keeps your team fresh throughout the season. It helps with attrition. That you have players that get injured, because they always get injured. But also depth for Utah that's not there anymore, and it's really NIL. It's the transfer portal that has really decimated the depth of this team. Because the weakness is that if they get too many guys hurt or not too many guys hurt on this team, it could have a massive impact on the team. They're not deep at the defensive tackle position. They're not deep at wide receiver. They're not really deep at corner, at least with proven commodities. So you've got a depth issue, and part of where it will hurt is in development, because the part of the culture of this program is to take young players that are 3-star players, borderline 4-star players, and really turn them into more than what they came into the program with, and to turn a decent number of these guys into pros that end up going to the next level, and they do as good a job as anyone in the country, which is why I would argue to say that Kyle Whittingham might be one of the top 5 best coaches in all of college football for that reason. That they do an excellent job of getting the very best out of their players and developing players. And it's not that way anymore. They've recognized that having that depth and having these young players step into the program, you're probably at a 50-50 split. You're probably going to have guys that you bring into the program and they come up from the program, but now you've got to augment a significant amount of that team with players through the transfer portal. And that's a new road for Utah. And right now it's a weakness. And if you're not aware of it, because this whole analysis is to go, let's really assess where we are and make measures to minimize or eliminate the challenges, the threats, and to also maximize what our strengths are. But depth is a real issue. And one of the other things that I think is a weakness in the program is there isn't a lot of top-end talent. Because this has kind of been there aren't these dudes in the program. And it's just like, if you could find a way to get some dudes, and these dudes could be a top-end edge rusher. They could be an elite corner, a shutdown. I mean, just an elite corner or an elite wide receiver or an elite quarterback. They don't have to have a lot of them, but they certainly got to have some of them. And they have great players, great individuals, but they don't have a few dudes. And I think it's a weakness that doesn't allow them to compete I'm going to get to the threats, but it has an impact on their ability to compete in the conference, because the dudes set you apart from everyone. Like, if you have these guys, you can set yourself but it gives you a more consistent opportunity to win. But if you're just kind of on par with everyone in the conference, or if you're just on par and there's teams that have these players, going to the college football playoffs and making any kind of push in the playoffs is a challenge without some top end talent, which I don't think they have. And of course, the obvious weakness on this team is wide receiver. The guy Zachariah Williams was the one guy that everyone talked about, and making strides and hitting all these things and doing and he looked great. And he's not got. And I haven't seen a guy to replace him. And I don't know that guy's there. I really don't. I think it's going to rely heavy on run, play action, quarterback running, and kind of selectively finding the right guy. But I'm not seeing any depth at talent at the wide receiver position. Maybe some of these guys that have transferred step up, and maybe part of seeing them in the spring where they're just getting familiar with a new system. Maybe it takes more time, and I hope that's the case. But right now, I'm still not quite seeing it. And then a weakness in the program, although they have the capacity to pay the $20.5 million in NIL money that they do to the players, they don't. This program does not have the deep financial resources and the revenue that a lot of programs have. You're not in the maybe somewhere around 40 in the country as far as financial resources. You have a great booster base, wonderful people who really maximize things out, but you need a significantly larger pool of financial resources than what you have currently. Again, to kind of, and I'm looking at this long term. I'm looking at this from a national perspective. I'm looking at it to really compete and be relevant in college athletics, because in my mind, that's why not? I mean, you're in a Power Four conference. You have every right, like anyone else. You were invited to the dance when you went to the Pac-12 some 14-ish years ago, whenever that happened. So why not act like a big boy? And these are big boy things that you're going to have to do in your program. If you don't, then you're just going to be a mid-tiered team in the country. And if everyone's okay with that, then oh well, then maybe the depth of financial resources isn't really okay, isn't important. Let's go on to assets. So the assets I believe this team has, one is coaching experience. Again, that knowledge that is just it's a huge asset to this team. Clearly, the offensive line is a huge asset, but it's more about like things, right? So it's the coaching experience, it's the home atmosphere. Like Utah has one of the best home atmospheres in the country. You could argue even in the conference. They're certainly on par with everyone else. Rice Eccles is a tough place to play, a really hard place to play, and it's an asset that you really should maximize the value of it. And that means all the fans need to show up and get in the stands and get behind the team and make it even more difficult for opponents. But the home atmosphere is as special as it gets. And I will tell you, that third period, when they do that moment of celebration, and oh my goodness, that just gets me every time. I mean, there's just a lot of great things with the home atmosphere, and they've got good facilities. And they made a commitment to get solid facilities, which are very important. They're very important in the process of recruiting. They're very important in the process of building and developing your players and your program. And Utah has very solid. It's not the Taj Mahal, but man, they're living in the high rent district of college football, and they're living in a mansion. It's a nice house. And another asset that is the administrative support. President Randall, the athletic department, I mean, across the board, they have the support. They want this program to do well, and you need that because it kills a lot of programs in college football if you do not have that administrative support. Now, threats to me are kind of interesting in that there are kind of things lurking out there that could cause problems to the success of your program. And one of the biggest threats I think Utah has is little brother down south. There was a huge rift between where these programs were going with BYU and Utah when Utah entered the Pac-12. It significantly changed where everything was. And then all of a sudden, they're now they're both in Power 4 conferences and in the same conference. And BYU has made a big jump. And it's a threat. And it's a threat to recruiting. It's a threat to the psychology of things. BYU's trying to make a big deal and they've gotten players from Utah. It's hurt, and it's significant. And you could look at other, the basketball program at BYU is just on a meteoric rise in where it is. Could be one of the top in the whole conference and one of the best basketball conferences in the country. So you can't minimize little brother down south, and you can't just kind of brush them off now because they're now competing for the same things you are, and a lot of times in the same homes and in the same communities and schools, and so it's a real threat, and it's something you need to be aware of and have a strategy developed to thwart the threat. And another threat to me is the apathy of boosters. Money, if you're going to be successful in college athletics and football today, your boosters have got to step up. And I can imagine it's hard, to constantly be asked to, we need money, we need this, and we need that. And they've done a tremendous job, but man, you all of a sudden get to where they just go, well, we're kind of burned out with this. Doesn't work. And then when a threat is being in the conference that Utah's in, because they're just like everyone else. And you got to find a way to separate yourself. But talent-wise, I mean, you're probably on par with just the conference, and you need to be better. You need to find a way to really separate yourself. And Utah was headed in that direction in the Pac-12. They were kind of the team in the conference. Now Oregon, had they stayed, maybe that's a different story. But you've got to, otherwise you're going to end up beating each other up. You're going to end up cannibalizing everyone, and you're going to have multiple lost teams, and your national relevance is just going to be okay, and that's a real threat. The national relevance of Utah, if you don't take these steps to you've got to be in the conversation. You've got to be a team that in the preseason they go, Utah's going to be in the top 10 this year. They're going to be in the top 15. And no matter what, you have to be in that conversation. Otherwise, people forget about you, and they don't care. All right, there you have it. There's my SWOT analysis of Utah football. Kind of a fun thing. It's actually fun to go through because it really kind of makes you think about where things are and what you have and what you don't have. And hopefully, the Utes can develop a strategy to maximize what they are, because I think they can be a really good team, and there's no reason why they can't compete for a championship and a spot in the college football playoffs. Let's take a break. We come back here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Hey, it's Father's Day weekend. We'll talk about who's where and what, and can someone win this next major in golf. This is Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 700 921 FM. Well, that was a short break. Welcome back. It's the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 700 921 FM. Scott Mitchell filling in for Sean O'Connell. Of course, I'm the host of the Down and Dirty that can be heard here on ESPN 700 921 from 10 to 11 every morning. They squeeze me right in between Dan Patrick and Sean. And then, of course, you can hear me on our sister station, 103.9 98.3 ESPN The Fan from 1 to 2. So when I'm not here, I'm there. And I'm everywhere. But I'm glad to be here. Glad to help out Sean. Glad to talk about sports today. It's been it's hump day today, so we're having a fun time knowing that the weekend is just around the corner.
Plus, you asked me in the last break. Sorry to cut you off, Scott. He
Great,
is in.
thanks a lot.
I know. You love me like that. He is in Nashville for the welterweight semifinals.
Ooh, okay. Nashville. He's in Nashville. If I had a southern accent, I don't know if that's a southern Nashville. Is he from Nashville?
I think you gotta have a little more twang and a little more.
Oh yeah. I'll have to work on that.
A little more banjo twang.
I got it. I know what you're saying. Yep. It's that old time country rock, country music. Yeah. All right. The U.S. Opens this weekend. Of course, it's always on Father's Day weekend. It is the third major in professional golf. It's always an interesting event for me because of how difficult they make it. And I love to see 3 inches of rough, and then the first cut of rough is brutal. Like your ball just disappears. I think I played golf for a long time in my life. I think one of the most frustrating things is to hit a ball and you see where it goes. Like it's not in the woods. It's not somewhere. It's in the rough, and you can't find it. Like you have to be right on. They put the little wire things with the flag on top, and they stick it in the ground and say, yeah, deep down underneath all of that is your ball. I've actually played. I played Oakland Hills, and the year that they had the Open. There, I played Pinehurst right before they had the Open at Pinehurst, and these are brutal. Now Oakmont is tough. It's tough because it's really long, and you got to hit the ball really straight. So it kind of favors the longer hitters. And Scotty Scheffler is kind of in a place all by himself. And Bryson DeChambeau kind of had a meltdown in the Masters Players Championship, and I'm sorry, the PGA. I don't know. I got a feeling about Bryson DeChambeau. I think it's going to be a long hitter. It's going to be a long hitter. How much are you involved in golf? Martin, are you interested in golf at all?
I am.
Have you ever played golf?
I have not played a full 9 or 18. I've been to the range, obviously, just doing the fun stuff of a driver. My stepdad's big into it, so whenever I go home to Chicago, him and I sit on the couch for a Saturday and Sunday hangout. I agree with you. Elkland is going to be a very tough course. The rough is tough, but the hills are a little bit more tough. Everything's just swooping up and down. It's not like the Masters where it's kind of flat and has those slight curve edges, so I agree with you. Bryson DeChambeau will be a good one to watch. Scotty Scheffler. I'm keeping my eyes on John Rahm. I'm keeping my eyes on Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry, who all showed up at the Masters. So I think there's some good underdogs in this field as well.
Well, it's you got to drive the ball long and straight. Yeah, like you basically you hit the ball in the rough, and it's just going to be you're going to lose a shot. It's just how it is. Always fun to watch that over Father's Day weekend. We have a segment coming up in a bit. We're going to talk about father figures. And who would be a good father figure that's is now or has been a professional football coach? Who would you pick as your best father figure coach that you would want to play for? And it doesn't have to be professional football, so it's just football in general. And we pick football because it's the one we love the most. Well, we might have a basketball coach or two in there. We'll see. We're going to take another break, but when we come back, Shahan Jarija with CBS Sports is going to talk to us about the house settlement. I'm looking forward to this because I'm curious just where this is all going to go because this is a major seismic shift in all of college football and college sports in general. So we're going to go deep on that one with Shahan when we get back on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 921 FM. Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. It is the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Proud to be a part of Utah's ESPN radio network. I'm Scott Mitchell, filling in for Sean today and tomorrow. Of course, I do a show here on ESPN 792.1 from 10 to 11. It's called The Down and Dirty. And I also do it again on our sister station from 1 to 2 on 103.9, 98.3 ESPN The Fan. Joining our show right now is Shahan Jarija. Of course, he's with CBS Sports. He's joining us to talk about college football and specifically the House settlement. Shahan, how are you doing today? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
You are welcome. Okay, so the House settlement was approved. They had some kind of wrangling. They had a few things that the judge was like, I'm not really comfortable with this. Go back and negotiate, and I'll approve this. What actually ultimately was settled in the negotiation? I know it was kind of the scholarships of players that were grandfathered in. What ultimately did they settle on that made the judge happy to agree to this settlement?
Yeah, so a big part of it was kind of a transition agreement for how they're going to deal with roster limits. You know, when you look back, especially with walk-ons, there just has not been a true roster limit. I think that you're allowed to carry in the past 125 total players. Well, now that's going to be 105 players, but all of them will be eligible for scholarships. So they wanted to try and transition that so that opportunities wouldn't just be cut from players who were currently on campus. And they found an agreement that the judge was happy with. But overall, I mean, this is a transformative moment for college athletics.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to the creation of the College Sports Commission, which will be essentially a new body run by the power conferences that will deal with everything related to player compensation, including enforcement and rulemaking. It's going to deal with the first time that we're going to formally have direct payments for pay-for-play from schools to athletes. And then on top of that, we're also going to have a massive $2.8 billion settlement with back pay for athletes that participated between 2016 to 2024 who weren't eligible to get NIL rights because the rules did not change until 2021. So a huge moment, one of the biggest, I think you could argue, in the history of college athletics, and one that they're still kind of trying to create on the fly.
Okay, so I played at the University of Utah here in Salt Lake from 1986 to 1990. Can they go back that far? Can I have reparations back in that day? Should I file a lawsuit? I mean, where does this end? I say it kind of facetiously and half joking, but could there be more litigation issues that come about? I mean, they said they're going back to 2018. Could they keep going back further? Or where do you see some of the potential lawsuits that might happen in the future?
So on that specific question and that specific issue, so the initial House lawsuits or some of the lawsuits around it, so the initial of them was filed in 2021. So what that actually means is that there is a period of essentially where you are eligible that goes back 5 years because of statute of limitations. Anything further back than that, like obviously you'd be talking about going back more than 30 years, that's going to be considered outside of the statute of limitations. So that's why there's that particular deal. Now, look, here's kind of the funny thing about it, right? I went to school from 2012 to 2016. I was not a college athlete, but so like, you were my age, your final college football season, for example, could have been, up until December 2015. So even though you were just as, I guess you could say, wronged by what was going on, you are just outside of the statute of limitations. And so you will get 0% of the money that's being distributed. Now, again, that's based on legal precedent. That's based on statute of limitations. And so that's not necessarily going to be something where an athlete who's my age can go back and sue for that. It's kind of just luck of the draw to a certain extent.
That's the story of my life. I'm right outside the statute of limitations. Just didn't quite make it. So this settlement, now the settlements for you talk about the back pay. Who pays for that? Like, is it do each of the universities have a responsibility? Where does all that money come from the back pay end of this? Because I know like each school right now has up to $20.5 million, and what I understand that the universities are responsible to pay that out of their revenue, I assume. But the back pay part of it, where does that come from?
Yes, and so for people who don't know, let's draw a distinction between those two things. So there's the back pay element, which will be paid to former athletes,
right.
And then there's the revenue sharing piece, which will be paid to current athletes and athletes heading forward. So when we talk about the back pay, as I mentioned, it's going to be for athletes between 2016 and 2024. Essentially, the NCAA itself will create a giant pot involving people, involving universities at essentially every single level, especially the Division I level. So I believe that what they've done is approximately like $1 billion is going to be taken out of essentially current and future NCAA contracts. The rest will be paid out and collected from the school. So Some of this will come from, distributions that would have gone to schools. Some of this will go from schools having to pay into this. And they created a formula. This was many years ago at this point. So, of course, as you can imagine, the power conference schools have to pay a huge majority of this. But this was actually something that was very contentious for some of the mid-major schools, some of the low-major schools, because, one of the schools that actually filed an objection was Houston Christian University, of course, a university where you're probably not having a lot of players who would have gotten a lot of NIL or revenue-sharing dollars.
Right.
Like, why are we having to pay for this? And ultimately, more of, from a proportional perspective, like some of the lower-level schools are going to have to pay more to pay out power conference players than what they would have received necessarily. But it's all part of, again, the big picture NCAA pool. And so they're going to create a giant pool that ultimately will be more than $2 billion, and all the damages over the next 10 years will be paid out of that.
Wow. So how does this impact the different conferences? Like you're in the top of the food chain in the SEC and the Big Ten. What impact, but then also the other Power Four conferences and even some of the lesser. What kind of impact will this have on the different conferences?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because if you are a bigger athletic department, if you have a bigger budget, it's going to impact you less than some of the schools that have smaller budgets, especially at the power conference level. Now, all of these schools, I mean, again, like even the quote unquote least of the power conference schools are making $30+ million in television revenue alone.
Right.
So being able to just pull from that on top of things like NCAA tournament units, like it's going to be relatively simple enough to pull that money. The more interesting one, I would argue, is when you do get to maybe more of what we would consider, both in football and basketball, the mid-major level,
yep,
where you're having to pay a certain amount of this. And, again, maybe you're only having to, especially on the lower major level, maybe you're only having to pay $500,000 a year into this. But $500,000 a year matters a whole lot more when your athletic department budget is $12 million than having to pay $7 or $8 million a year when your athletic department budget is $127 million.
Right.
And so I think that, you've started already to see some mid and smaller schools start to cut some sports that are a bit more expensive. Many of them will not fully fund scholarships the way that power conference schools likely will. Again, it's a really, really interesting and also really, really frustrating time for everybody as they try to figure out, okay, we have to budget for this money that we're not going to get. And also, by the way, for the power conference schools, we have to budget an extra $20 million that we never had to worry about before.
Right. Do they have to do it? Do the schools have to pay? Is everyone required to pay out the $20.5 million, or can you forego it and then just lose out on maybe the opportunity of having more, quality programs? I mean, what's the requirement to actually do it?
Yeah, there's no requirement at this point. It's fully voluntary.
Oh.
Now, I think what's going to be interesting, right, is like if you are, a low tier. Let's take a program like Vanderbilt, for example. Now Vanderbilt probably just from a fundraising perspective can probably get to 20, but like if they decide, hey, we're only going to pay out $12 million because we really don't want to pay out that much more. I think that everybody's going to worry that as a power conference school, that puts you on the short list for schools to be cut in the next round of realignment. That you're not willing to invest to the level that it requires to be a power conference program. So, I know that actually my old colleagues at Dave Campbell's Tech Football, they reported that Houston is going to get to $20.5 million, but it might not happen in year one because they don't get a full share of Big 12 revenue at this point. So there's going to be this mad rush to try to get to that number because here's the reality, right, is that there is going to be no more clear indicator that you are not willing to compete at the highest level than not being able to fund that full revenue share. And, we saw it, of course, with the Big Ten and SEC realignment in the past 5 years. You don't want to put yourself in a position to where you're not being considered to be a fully functioning major athletic department.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite. And this whole thing is just it's so nuanced. Just even in some of the major. Here in Utah, we're in the Big 12, and you have some of the teams in the conference that are okay. I mean, Utah's made a declaration that they will fund this and do this, and then you have Houston that's kind of in a different place. How does this impact the other sports in athletic programs? What is that going to look like?
It's fascinating, and this is maybe the most interesting question about this new era. Because here's the reality: is that the $20.5 million cap, it includes every sport, and there are no rules at this point about how that money has to be spent. So, if you wanted to, you could give all $20 million to like an outside hitter on the volleyball team. Like there's no rules about how this is going to work. Obviously, most schools are going to invest the vast majority of that money into football, both because football is so important and also because you're talking about now 105 scholarship players that you might be giving between. But I think that is going to make, athletic departments more zero-sum than they've ever been. And what I mean by that is take a school like South Carolina that obviously wants to invest in football and wants to compete at a high level, but also has an incredible women's basketball program.
Right.
Well, and also, by the way, like you still have to fund men's basketball, especially when you're playing in the SEC.
Yeah.
Well, like you kind of almost set one of those programs adrift. You say, hey, listen, we're kind of screwed in men's basketball, and we're just going to have to live with that because we have to fund football and women's basketball. I think it's going to be harder than ever to really deliver at the highest level in a bunch of different sports in the revenue sharing world. And maybe because for example, I mentioned Vanderbilt before. Vanderbilt is an incredible baseball program.
Yep.
Maybe you're in a position where Vanderbilt way over indexes on baseball relative to the rest of the SEC because they don't maybe care about football to the same extent. Well, like that also could be a huge advantage. Kentucky, maybe they deliver, $7 or $8 million to basketball while everybody else is at 4 or 5. Like these are going to be incredibly difficult conversations between programs, between coaches, between athletic departments. I'm a Baylor graduate, right? So like you have a national championship men's and women's basketball program historically, and also a football program that's competed at the highest level. And also, you've still done well in volleyball and softball, et cetera. So how do you make that math work to the best of your ability? And the reality is everybody's going to approach it a little bit differently, and I'm fascinated to see which programs ultimately find the formula that works best for them.
Yeah, I'm sure. Here, gymnastics is one of those secondary sports 100%. That's a big deal. So how do you manage it? Like, say let's wave a magic wand. You're an athletic director at a Power 4 school. What makes the most sense for you, and how would you allocate your funding of this $20.5 million?
Well, listen, I mean, I obviously cover football, but even if whether I like it or not, I think you have to be a certain level of competitive in football just to be able to exist in this new world. If you fall behind in football, I think it forces you to fall behind in just about everything else. So, the numbers that we've heard are somewhere like 13 to 14 million out of the 20.5 million at most programs is going to be what the football team is making. So I think that you kind of don't have a choice. And from there, I think you have to be selective. For me, I'm a big men's basketball and women's basketball guy, so I think you have to figure out what works there. But you probably do have to pick which of those two is going to be your top priority. And then I think that you also have to pick maybe one or two other sports that you're really willing to invest in. If you're an SEC program, that's probably going to be baseball. At other programs, a lot of Big Ten schools, it might be volleyball, for example. So I think, I know that Oklahoma and Texas A&M told our Brenda Marcello over at CBS Sports, they're going to rev share with 6 programs. And you assume football, men's, women's basketball are 3 of them, probably baseball as well. I'd imagine that for Oklahoma, it's going to be softball. I assume that, for Texas A&M, maybe they invest a little bit more into women's basketball. And so I think that you really have to prioritize what sports are you trying to be nationally competitive in, and what sports do you just want to be competitive in your conference.
So basically what you're saying is everyone's got to invest in football at a significant rate, unless you're Vanderbilt. And then you just, based on kind of maybe your region, your conference, or a program that's just one that excels for whatever reason at your school. What happens when with all the other programs? Like, let's say you don't pick, let's say you're at Utah and you don't pick your softball program. Does the softball program, do you just cut the program, or do you just have a crappy program? And what happens to all the programs that don't get subsidized by this funding?
Well, I think that a lot of the programs are, again, I think you're going to be able to be, league average in your respective conference without much rev share put in. Because, again, think about the Big 12. Which schools in softball specifically are going to put a good amount of money? Baylor has a historically pretty good program. Obviously Texas Tech has invested in a big way. And by the way, one of their two mega boosters is married to a former softball player, which has been a huge part of their story. But I would, again, if there are 16 teams, I think it's 15. I don't think Iowa State has a team. But out of 15, maybe it's only 5 that are investing in a truly serious way into your softball program, and 10 that maybe aren't. So I think that there still will be plenty of way to be competitive in that world. I just don't know if you have the ability to be a nationally competitive program the same way. And for a lot of schools and a lot of sports, that's going to be okay. I mean, again, I think that we're losing sight a little bit in some ways of a lot of these sports exist, one, to give scholarship opportunities,
right,
and two, because they're fun and entertaining, and people want to go out and watch them. And you don't have to win the Women's College World Series for it to be worth going out and seeing Utah softball day after day. So I don't think you have to cut these sports by any means. And honestly, I think that there's going to be a lot of backlash if that does happen, especially if you can afford it. But it's going to be more complicated. And, but I don't think that this is a new phenomenon either, right? There are schools that even in a pre-rev share world, like Oklahoma was investing in softball in its own way, in a different way than other schools in the Big 12 or SEC were historically. So I think it's just going to be a version of that. It's just maybe going to be a little bit more obvious which schools are able to do it at this high level and which aren't.
What happens to the NIL program that exists today? Is it still there? Is it change? What happens with it?
Yeah, so the best comparison that I can make for it, right, is let's think about the NFL salary cap. And the NFL salary cap is that $20.5 million rev shared number. That's the salary cap. So, for example, Jerry Jones can't sign, CeeDee Lamb to a $5 million outside endorsement contract, because that would obviously be cap circumvention. So that's what they're trying to do right now in college athletics. Is when you hear about this NIL clearinghouse, that's what they're trying to avoid. And so it's going to be interesting how that's actually implemented. I've heard some level of optimism that between the level of punishment that would be able to be given out and also the review process, that they're going to be able to protect parts of this. And, again, but that's kind of up in the air. So, for example, there's the story of the Texas Tech softball player, Nigeria Kennedy. Well, ultimately, she signed an outside collective deal. Those collective deals are probably mostly not going to be allowed heading forward. They have to be, quote unquote, true market value. And so it's going to make the process just a little bit more complicated and confusing, especially in this short term, where everybody is going to be trying to figure out what they can get away with. But, to speak to collectives generally for a second, I expect most schools will probably mostly do away with their collectives, or they'll move their collective operation internal in order to kind of deal with the rev share piece of this. So again, it's going to be complicated, but they really are trying to get away from boosters and especially school affiliated people being able to essentially hand out blank checks and essentially get around this cap and make it irrelevant.
Yeah, that to me is the part that I think is going to be fascinating to watch. I mean, none of it is boring. This is insane what has happened, and I'm just really curious to see how the NIL, because let's face it, I think some schools had their own NIL programs for years, and they just weren't known and weren't talked about, and there was a bag man that showed up, and so if they can curb that, and they can, because I'm all for the players getting paid like they should and for what they should, and because I think college football for sure is not an amateur sport; it's a professional sport, and so should be treated as such. It'll be fun. That'll be fun. One last question before I let you go here. It's been great stuff, by the way. Really enjoyed this. You're awesome, and your insight's great. Who benefits from this the most in all of college athletics?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, it's been so interesting. Like when you look at the long history of college football, schools in the NCAA have like owned players for basically 100 years. And then this last 5 years, players have kind of owned schools in the NCAA and been able to really take advantage of this unregulated market. I think that ultimately, let's just say hypothetically that the settlement goes in and it gets held up in court and they're legally allowed to do the stuff that they're claiming that they have the right to do. I do think that especially in the short term, this does end up being quite a victory for schools in the NCAA. Because here's the reality: look around all of sports. There is not a sport where you have perpetual free agency and contracts that are only beholden to one side. Like that's just not something that happens anywhere else. LeBron James doesn't just get to decide, hey, it's year 2 of my contract, but I just want to go play for the Knicks instead. Like
right.
That's not something that happens in any other sport. So I think that it ends up being a benefit for schools more than anybody else in the short term. My hope, like my sincere hope as somebody who is obviously a fan of college football, is that it ends up being mutually beneficial for everybody, for fans, for players, and for schools, that there are just going to be guidelines in place. Because, look, it's great that players have been able to, in a sense, benefit from the rubber bands bouncing all the way back and kind of take advantage of a market that I would argue is a little bit of a bubble. But this isn't a long-term fix to some of these issues. Well, now you're going to be in a position where, you know, the 68 schools that are in the power conferences are probably going to be revenue sharing about $20 million each. And that's money that historically has not gone to the players. I think that there's a way that this can work out for the best where everybody ultimately comes out on top.
Boy, it's going to be fascinating to watch. Really appreciate your time. Great stuff. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, there you have it. Shahan Jarija with CBS Sports. Great insight into the House settlement. We're going to take a break here on the Sean O'Connell Show. But after we come back, it's Father's Day this weekend, and we're going to talk about who the best father figure football coaches or head coaches of sports would be. We'll talk about that and so much more here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700-921 FM. Hey, sports fans. Welcome back. It's the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Utah's #1 sports talk. I'm Scott Mitchell. I'm filling in for Sean today and tomorrow, and we're having fun today. Shahan was amazing. It was great insight into the whole house settlement and really starting to understand that. You know, one of my big concerns with the whole thing was, well, what happens to all these other sports? And really, I don't know that anything changes because, you know, you think of the University of Utah, and it's like any other university. They have their sports, their major sports that they focus on, and then they have some auxiliary sports that, and they vary at schools. Utah has gymnastics. Other schools might have other sports. You know, you look at BYU, they have a great track program. They got a volleyball program, you know, and so everyone's like that. I don't think there's a school that just has everything that's great. Now, you go to a school like Stanford, and you might say everything is great that isn't great at all the other schools. Like, they're not good at the big sports. They're really good at all the little tiny ones. But the point, I think this is maybe the main thing I got out of it. I don't think anything's going to change for these other sports like at the University of Utah. I don't think it changes at all. They're going to be kind of middle of the road, what they've been. Maybe every once in a while they kind of jump up and surprise you and just have one of those years. But the other sports are going to benefit the most from it, which bring in most of the revenue, which is kind of how it has been. And I don't think maybe this doesn't change. Maybe it does actually settle this all down a little bit. I don't think we know, but it sure feels like it's not so bad. Okay, we're going to do a fun thing here. It's Father's Day this weekend, and every one of us has a father because we were born.
Yes, we were.
And from what I understand of biology, you need a father in order to make a baby and a mom. So we all have fathers. And we all have father figures in our life. And they vary in, like, our experience. But I just thought it would be interesting to kind of go through some of the people in sports, head coaches, that would be really good, the all-time great father figures in head football coaches. And for some reason, it just feels like football should just have should be the father figure, right? Like baseball. I mean, could you say Tommy Lasorda? Would he be a good father figure? And why is it that father figures have? Because we get a little roly-poly father figure. Because we're talking about a guy like Andy Reid, and it's like I don't know. It's like why does a father figure have to be a little bit of a roly-poly guy? Because that was my first thought. So maybe it's important that you have a rotundness to you to be a father figure. So we've come up with this list. We'll talk through this list a little bit. Maybe decide who might be the greatest father figure coach of all time. And you're free to text in. 877-353-0700. Text in. Tell us who you think your greatest father figure coach of all time would be. Okay. So Martin here kind of started the list off with some old dudes, right? In fact, all of the ones that you listed off at the very beginning, they're all dead now. But in their day, would they have been that father figure? So one, of course, is Vince Lombardi. He was the tough, guy with he's the Lombardi Trophy's named after him. And he says winning isn't, everything. It's the only thing, or something like that. Or
yeah,
he was actually misquoted on that. and I'm probably misquoting his misquote, but who cares? He was a great coach, and if you have the Lombardi Trophy named after you, that's amazing, right? So then you have, of course, Don Shula, you have Tom Landry, and you have John Madden.
Yep.
Those are kind of your old dudes. That, of course, they're all dead now, but at one time. So of those four, I'm trying to think. So Vince Lombardi was the tough dad.
Yeah.
Vince Lombardi was the tough love dad. Like he came from an era where you were going to go out behind the woodshed and you were going to get a whooping. And that was normal. A lot of people listening may not realize this, but a lot of kids that grew up, and a lot of kids I grew up with, getting a beating was not unnormal. It wasn't odd. It wasn't child abuse. It was actually expected. It was a recommended form of child development. Beat it out of him. Whoop that child if he gets out of line. Now you'd be put in prison today for that. But I just see now. I'm trying to ask myself, because would I want to be coached by Vince Lombardi? Would I want Vince Lombardi to be my dad? I'm not sure. Of those four, of course, Coach Shula, I don't know. Coach Shula scared me to death. And then Coach Shula, I met him after. Like, he was different when he wasn't your coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was funny. He was warm. He had a personality. When he was coach, he's like all business. So and then Tom Landry, I think he was minus the smile muscle. I think he had he had some kind of condition. The permanent, like, not smile face. I know it's what it's called, but we can't say it on the radio.
Nope.
Anyways, he had the permanent not smile face. But he seemed like a nice man. Yeah, I think you could add Chuck Noll to this list.
Yeah, Chuck.
Chuck Noll. Now, Terry Bradshaw hated Chuck Noll.
Yes, he did.
But Chuck Noll, I'm going with Madden.
Yeah.
I just want Madden to be my dad. For the old guy, because he's funny.
Yep.
Like, he's a character.
Yeah.
Now, I did meet John Madden. I had several conversations with John Madden. John Madden's kind of grumpy. Like, he's kind of grumpy. He was funny. He had this personality. Sometimes people on air are different than they're off air. And that's kind of how Shula was. But I'm still going to go with John Madden.
Yeah, me too.
So for the old guys. Now here's some guys maybe. Well, so there's a couple of current coaches, but there's also a couple of coaches that are not current, but are, like, what about Dick Vermeil? Like, he's among the living. Like, Dick Vermeil actually might be the perfect choice of a father for me, father figure.
Yep.
I think as I've thought through this, well, he's certainly up there. But you have, what about Tony Dungy?
Yep.
Tony Dungy. Tony Dungy actually might be the best of all time. If you're going to ask me the very best of all time dad, but then there's another one. You know who the other one is?
What's that?
Andy Reid.
That's a good one.
Do you think Andy Reid would? Oh, see, I might have to go with Andy Reid now. I went from Dick Vermeil to Tony Dungy to Andy Reid. Maybe it's Uncle Tony and cousin Dick. Cousin Vermeil. So he's not your dad. He's just a relative, but he's the fun relative. He's although Dick Vermeil was a tough coach. Like, he was hardcore, dude. I'm not kidding. He was a tough. If you ever watched what is it called, the show with Vince Papali? What's that show called? I don't know that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or are you talking to someone else? Where are you?
I'm here.
Did you hear my aunt? Where's Dick Vermeil? What was the movie with Vince Papali? I can't remember.
Oh, dude, you got me on that one.
Is it Invincible?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is invincible. Yep, invincible.
He was hardcore.
He was.
They didn't like him. He puked before the games. Anyway,
But somehow he trusted Kurt Warner to win a Super Bowl.
I know. And that's why he had to go dig a barnstormer from Arena Football League to win a championship. Okay, so of all of those guys, you have a guy like so they're not dead yet coaches. So you have Tony Dungy, you have Dick Vermeil, you have Andy Reid. Could we add in Pete Carroll?
That's a good one.
So of all four of those, who are you picking?
I'm taking again. I got to take the funny one and the charismatic one. I got to take Andy.
Yeah.
John and Andy will give you a mile, and when they yank that chain, you'll understand why. But at the same time, you'll enjoy the fact that you got a mile.
Yeah, Andy Reid just seems like a lot of fun.
He does.
He seems like maybe he's a very lovable guy too, or maybe not. Maybe underneath that facade he's not.
Who doesn't want to sneak cheeseburgers in before you go to bed?
Good point. Yeah, cheeseburgers. You sold me on cheeseburgers. I'm going with that. Okay, so now let's get to some maybe some younger guys. Well, let's get to some younger guys, and or no, we'll take the brothers. All right. So you have Jim Harbaugh and you have John Harbaugh.
Yep.
They're brothers. You have to pick one. Of the two, who do you want as your dad?
John. John isn't gonna whoop me as bad as Jim.
See, I think so. John just seems like a very normal guy.
Yeah.
But I want Jim Harbaugh just because he's crazy. He's a little bit. I don't know. I'm at a time in my life that I need some spice. I just need to understand why he does all the quirky things he does.
Get to the point.
I need to understand why he has khakis and football cleats on the sideline. I want to know that. And here's the thing I do know about Jim Harbaugh. All the people that are around him have tremendous respect for him.
That's true.
He's a well thought of human being, and I believe he's a good human being. I think I go with Jim Harbaugh.
You got to give him credit. He throws it back to the '80s style of all the coaches wearing khaki pants. He does not give up on the old school style.
No, very principled, very disciplined person. Has a philosophy that he really believes in, and it's been proven to win and to win out really everywhere he's been.
Yep.
So very, very fascinating. Jim Harbaugh is a good pick. Okay, let's kind of go local here.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go local, and I'm gonna take Frank Layden.
Okay.
Of course, the basketball coach, legendary coach of the Utah Jazz, funniest human being alive. Like you've never lived in your life until you've had a conversation with Frank Layden. Like everyone in the world should be able to spend 20 minutes to a half an hour and just talk to Frank Layden. That will change your life. And I mean that in all seriousness. Just what an individual. Just a very good human being, funny human being, amazing human being. Or Lavelle Edwards, of course. You know, he was a legendary coach at BYU, and he was to many, and he felt it was important as a coach to be that father figure.
Yep.
And the last one is Ron McBride. And same thing. So Coach McBride had a tremendous impact on young people. Just the things he's done, both known publicly and not. There are things he actually did for me that were just very, very thoughtful, very kind, and very meaningful. Like, it meant a lot to me what he actually did, and he's done that for a lot of people. So locally, of those three, and is there anyone else locally here that we? I mean, is Kyle Whittingham?
Yeah, I was gonna say Kyle, and also we got to throw in Jerry Sloan there too.
Okay, fine. I don't care. We can throw everyone in. That's kind of what we do on this show. We just, throw something at the wall and see what sticks.
The three that you picked, I would choose Lavelle Edwards just because I know him the best. But we've had plenty of guys on the show talk about Lavelle and the fact that he encouraged guys to go on the missions. He encouraged guys to, stick to their faith and to believe in what they wanted to do, be a father, be a mentor, be a leader. Like, you can't ask much more from a father figure who just tells you, "Hey, go out and do what you want and you got my full support." Like, that's what a father figure does.
Well said. I think that locally we represent ourselves very well with our head coaches and their ability to be father figures. I think any one of these coaches here locally that we've mentioned stack up against any of the well-known coaches throughout the history of predominantly the NFL. So it's hard. It would be hard for me. I don't know that I could pick one because I want to pick them all. So that's what I'm going to do is I salute all fathers on this day. You play an important role in the lives of your family, your children, your wives, in society as general. And I in no means or no way will ever diminish or demean the role of fathers. They are special, and my dad had a special meaning in my life, and I'm a father too, and I love my children, and man, I just want to be around them and to be a part of their life. So I salute all fathers. This is not Mother's Day. We're not diminishing mothers. They're amazing too, but we do not need to forget our fathers today. So I'm not. So there you go. All right, let's take a break. We come back. Oh, we're just going to wrap up the show. I think at some point we might get Spence Checketts in here to get a little crosstalk on. We'll find out if we do or we don't. I hope we do. I always enjoy our conversations with Spence. And we'll find out when we return here on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 92.1 FM. Hey, sports fans, welcome back. It's the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. I'm Scott Mitchell filling in for Sean today and tomorrow. Fun show today. Had a lot of fun talking about a lot of sports. Got some really good insight actually on the House settlement today. So that made me feel a little bit better about the craziness that is college football, and it just got extremely crazy, and I know that we're just at the beginning of all that, so that's going to be a fun thing to watch unfold. Right now, joining us on a little crosstalk is Spence Checketts. Of course, he is the host of The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's going to happen here in a few minutes. And earlier we on Sean's show here, I talked about the New York Knicks and attempting to talk to multiple coaches who are under contract in the NBA. Jason Kidd, Emu Udoka, and of course Minnesota's head coach. His name doesn't ring a bell.
Chris Finch.
Thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Finch.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them gave him permission. Is that even a thing? How do you get permission to talk to a coach under contract? I thought that's called tampering. And usually I know in the other sports like the NFL, they go, we're going to take away draft picks and we're going to fine you for things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go through the team, right? I mean, obviously, you don't have to go through the league. You have to go through the team. But ultimately, this isn't just a signal that all three teams said no. It's a signal that all three coaches also weren't interested.
Yeah.
Because what the team does is they'll go to the coach and say, look, if you're interested in the Nick job, okay, we need to know that because that means you may not be fully invested with us.
Right.
So if you are interested in that job, let's have a conversation about what that looks like. Because the other thing, what would happen, Scott, so let's say we'll use Chris Finch as an example. Let's say Chris Finch's agent reach out to Timberwolves ownership, Alex Rodriguez and the Lazar guy, the new owners of Minnesota, and he says, look, Jim Dolan, Leon Rose from New York, they've contacted me. They're interested in talking to Chris. Is that something that you guys would entertain? And then they'll loop in Chris, and if Chris says, yeah, I kind of have some interest in that, then what Minnesota can do is negotiate with New York about compensation in exchange for the coach. But I'll be honest, even as a Knick fan, I like that all three teams said no. Because there's a real hubris involved.
Yes.
That if you're the New York Knicks, for the first time in 30 years, you have a decent team,
Right.
and you fire a great coach, and
Right.
in the back of your mind, you're like, well, we'll just talk to whoever we want in the league. So as a Knicks fan, as somebody who, obviously, my father ran the organization for a number of years, I still find the hubris pretty off-putting,
Sure.
so I was glad they found closed doors.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure. Why would I want to go to a team like that? Like as a coach, you would think you would have some security in winning, and,
Sure.
and it looks like they're headed in the right direction. It doesn't look like it's just the end of where they're going.
Yeah.
Maybe they tweak this thing a little bit and they can go further than they did. Which Michael Malone, is that a different situation? I mean, here, it feels like that was different, the way he was fired, that maybe there was a rift between some of the players and the coach and the front office, and because Jokic didn't seem all upset about what happened, and then they did well in the playoffs. It's almost like they played better.
Yeah, they did. Ironically enough, I think Oklahoma City is going to run this thing. I think they're going to win it, and Denver played them better than anybody else. Denver's still not that far away. Now, Oklahoma City's still good and so young that they're going to probably be the class of the league for 4 or 5 years, barring an injury to Shea or something.
Yeah.
But in a way, the situations were somewhat similar because Tom and Michael are both old school coaches. So was Taylor Jenkins in Memphis. The type of coach that, all right, Scott, you're not practicing hard. I'm going to grab you by the face mask and smack you on your helmet and tell you to get your ass in gear.
Right.
The question is, can that approach work in today's day and age of the NBA with these younger stars who have been a little bit more coddled than athletes like you were growing up when you're used to being coached hard?
Nah.
I know you weren't.
No, we weren't.
But now these days, like most of the coaches that seem to have that old school approach have either retired or are losing their jobs. Yeah. And that's not entirely true. Like Ime Udoka, who you referenced from Houston, is a little bit of an old school, tough-minded guy. He's got a tough roster with young kids who don't mind being coached. So it does feel a little bit similar, but it also, for the Knicks, Scott, it comes down to one thing, and I'm sure you learned this as a player. It's the most important thing in all of team sports, and that is who owns your team. who is the owner of your team? Okay, because the buck always stops up there. Okay,
Right.
we adhere to the golden rule on my show. The
Sure.
man with the gold makes the rules.
I understand.
And also treat other people well. That golden rule still applies. But you probably played for owners that you liked and probably played for owners that you didn't. And there was probably a big difference in your day-to-day existence, correct?
Yeah.
And the Knicks potentially have the worst owner in the history of pro sports and after 25 years.
And the weird ownership I had was the Detroit Lions because they were great. Like they wanted to, like they took great care of the players, but they just for whatever reason couldn't get out of their own way.
Sure.
But they were, and then on really the total converse of that was the Cincinnati Bengals. Like it was one. I'm not joking. I say this all the time. You got one pair of socks, and you had to wear the heck out of. I mean, those socks had to have
single pair of socks.
A single pair of socks to practice in. And
I don't want to smell that locker room. That's gross.
well, they did wash them, but
still.
you just never got. Yeah, you could wear them out. All right, we've worn out this segment here of Crosstalk. It's time to end the show. The drive with Spence Checketts is coming up. Thanks for your time.
Good to see you, my friend. As always.
Likewise. So we're going to end this thing here. It's been the Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. The drive with Spence Checketts is next. And until then, we'll see you then.